This video dives into the attacks aimed at General Mkhwanazi, attempts to assassinate his character ever since he began exposing corrupt government figures and the drug networks they protect. The goal was clear, either to get Mkhwanazi arrested or discredited. Now figures like Paul O'Sullivan, Fidel Adams and Meriti Haas are some of the people who have spoken out against him, but so far none of them have produced solid evidence or proof, only accusations. Until evidence is shown, their words remain empty for now. Now we'll also examine the arrests of senior intelligence officers accused of allowing an unqualified person to take a brigadier post in intelligence. Now according to Mkhwanazi, this looks like a deliberate move to sideline intelligence officers from investigating cartel leaders like Katiso Molefe and Ket Madlanga amongst a few. Now in this episode, we'll highlight some of the explosive cases Mkhwanazi revealed during his third day of testimony and expose the dirty tricks his opponents are using in their desperate fight to win this battle. One of the biggest issues Mkhwanazi pointed out is how the media is used to twist the truth, manipulating the public and tarnishing his name. They either blow up false accusations with no proof or spin half-truths to make him look bad. But that's just smoke and mirrors. Now the real aim, according to Mkhwanazi, is distraction, hiding something bigger or shifting attention away from a certain case. There was a case that happened at Kalubusha prison in KZN. Now the prison head was arrested for drugs and illegal firearms, and Mkhwanazi stepped in. The media quickly painted him as a protector of drug dealers, claiming he tried to block the arrest. But according to Mkhwanazi, all he wanted to make sure was that the police followed the law. Now here's what he discovered, that the officers searched the property without a warrant. They never tested the so-called drugs to confirm if it was real, and they failed to check fingerprints to prove possession. None of the basics were done, meaning in court, the case would have collapsed instantly. Still, the media twisted the story to frame Mkhwanazi as the villain. Then came the so-called kidnapping case pinned on Mkhwanazi's men, the very officers from the political killings task team. Now they were accused of kidnapping for a forensic cop after taking him to his own office to access equipment for verification. Now the claim was that he was taken against his will and feared for his life. But the real story, according to Mkhwanazi, is this. Now this forensic officer had been sitting on crucial information. He was meant to conduct ballistics tests on guns used in the head of Aman Swart. He did the tests, but when the results showed that the same weapons were linked to other high-profile assault hits, he withheld that piece of the puzzle. Instead, he handed over incomplete findings, leaving out damning evidence. Now it looks like he was following orders from someone high up in the police. You see, the KZN task team was experienced. They had access to their own equipment and they ran independent tests, and the truth came out that indeed the weapons were tied to other assassinations. That's when they went back to the forensic officer, demanding to see the original equipment and results to compare them with their own. According to Mkhwanazi's testimony, the officer wasn't alone. His superiors were there during the visit, and he still had his phone with him, free to call for help at any moment. Yet later, the story was spun into a sensational headline, a kidnapping. Now according to Mkhwanazi, it was nothing more than a manufactured lie, carefully crafted to discredit him and his team. One of the loudest voices trying to destroy Mkhwanazi's name is Paul O'Sullivan. Now Paul doesn't even bother hiding his hatred for him. He was the first to publicly attack Mkhwanazi right after the initial press conference that was broadcasted live on TV. You see, Paul isn't a cop. He doesn't even work for the state. He runs a non-profit organization that exposes corruption and crime. But here's the catch. His work depends on funding. In reality, Paul works for whoever that pays him, as long as he likes you. So whenever you see Paul in action, the question you should be asking is, who's paying him this time? Mkhwanazi believes Paul somehow infiltrated the intelligence circles, and I must say, Paul's actions sometimes raises serious questions. Now, Paul has been seen defending President Ramaphosa, even in cases where the president's guilt looked obvious, like the Phala scandal. While most of the country saw a president hiding hundreds of millions in uncounted cash under a couch like it was drug money, Paul insisted nothing was wrong. It doesn't end there. Paul defends people close to the president, even when they are drowning in suspicion. He stands by Senzo Mkhwanazi saying he's a good guy and Shadrach Sibiya saying he's a good cop. Now these are two men who are at the center of this mess. Now Sibiya, who's suspended, is accused of being one of the corrupt cops, sowing chaos in the police while quietly helping criminals. And then there are whispers that during his time at the Gauteng Metro, Sibiya was involved in stealing or misusing public money. Yet Paul, his close friend, turns the spotlight on Mkhwanazi instead, accusing Mkhwanazi of taking bribes and receiving Louis Vuitton bags. But here's the problem. Paul has never shown a shred of evidence. He just talks, expecting everyone to just believe him. Not once has Paul claimed that anything Mkhwanazi said in that initial press briefing was false. Now instead, Paul hops from one media outlet to another, defending the suspended police minister who's accused of working with cartels, and General Sibiya, who's accused of doing the same thing. Now, according to Mkhwanazi, there's a reason for this loyalty. Paul himself might be involved, and he fears that if investigators keep digging, his own secrets could surface. Or he might be paid by the opposition. I think Paul O'Sullivan is one of the people that needs to come to the commission, and we need to hear his side of the story. Paul is at the center of another storm, this time also exposing a woman who jumped from BMW straight into a brigadier post in the police intelligence without any real experience. Now on the surface, it looks like a scandal about corruption and incompetence. But according to Mkhwanazi, this case is being used as a weapon to purge senior members of the police intelligence and push them off investigations into Katiso Molefe and Ket Madlanga and others who are tied to the cartel. The story begins with Fidel Adams. Instead of reporting sensitive matters to Parliament's Intelligence Committee, the only body with the power to handle such cases, he leaked them to local police. Now in doing so, Adams exposed highly classified information from intelligence to outsiders. Now among that information, there was people's private details and most prominently, the scandal of the brigadier's appointment. If I'm not mistaken, I think in those documents that Fidel Adams got hold of, they also exposed allegations of misused secret fund that's meant for police intelligence operations. Now, according to accusations, top officials used that money to buy hotels, buildings in Pretoria and in Durban, possibly even more. For now, we don't really know if these properties were bought under the intelligence department's name or under the personal names of these intelligence leaders. And that's the game sometimes these people play. They feed us half-truths, just enough to spark outrage, while keeping the full story buried. Now the problem is this. This Fidel Adams case was originally registered over a year ago, yet nothing happened until the arrests of Ket Madlanga and Katiso began. Suddenly, IDEC sprang into action, using the case to arrest intelligence officers for hiring a woman as a brigadier without experience. But according to Mkhwanazi, that's not a criminal case. It's an internal issue. HR should have handled it through a disciplinary hearing and then fired the person who's responsible for irregular appointment. Instead, the matter was blown up into a criminal case. Why? Mkhwanazi believes it was deliberately exaggerated to derail the investigations against Katiso and Ket Madlanga. Now in his view, Adams and O'Sullivan may be part of the network working to frustrate justice, shielding criminals under the banner of exposing corruption in the police. And then there's the leaks of classified intelligence documents to people who don't work for intelligence. Now according to Mkhwanazi, all signs point to General Feroz Khan. Now Khan sits in on the same meetings and has access to sensitive information because he was part of intelligence at some point. But he's not involved in the arrest of cartel members. But Mkhwanazi thinks Khan is the one leaking all this information. Possibly Brown Mkhwanazi got some of his information from Khan. Now we just don't know who gave Fidel Adams the documents. Maybe the Khan connection was at play there too. Now according to Mkhwanazi, Khan's friends in the media are the ones spreading twisted stories, carefully crafted to smear his name and cast doubt on his fight against the cartels. What makes the arrests of intelligence officers even worse, according to Mkhwanazi, is their bail conditions. A judge ordered them not to return to work, even though none of them are charged with violent crimes or considered a danger to anyone. Now to Mkhwanazi, this isn't justice. This is a strategy, a tactic designed to sideline the very same officers who are handling sensitive, high-profile cases by keeping them off duty and dragging the trial out for as long as possible. The system is being used to frustrate the entire process. And if this plan succeeds, the outcome is clear. Katiso Molefe, Ket Matlala, and the rest of the gang, they will walk free, never facing prosecutions. But what we must always be careful of is this. The media is being used to twist the narrative. Just because the story is published doesn't mean it's the truth. None of the people attacking General Mkhwanazi have ever said he was lying about his expose. Now Paul O'Sullivan must bring proof. Without it, his reputation will forever be questioned. But more importantly, the nation now awaits for Senzo Mchunu and Shadrack Sibiya to step forward and speak for themselves at the Commission.
I know there are many allegations against me in the public domain, which are widely publicized. There are podcast channels that are hosting specific individuals that speak so bad things about me. At least now I know that the Louis Vuitton bag cost how much money. I didn't know until they spoke about me in the media, and I went to ask my wife, what is a Louis Vuitton and how much is it? And I got to learn. I don't want to engage much on it. We know that Mr. Paul O'Sullivan, immediately after addressing the nation on the 6th of July, he came on television and he said bad things about me. And it did not start. He's been on this for years, commissioners. The relationship between him and Gerald Spear is something that's an open secret. So could it be that because I mentioned things about his friend that made him to respond like this? I said, this Mr. Paul O'Sullivan is working in the security industry as a security industry person. He once worked at the airport in Johannesburg, and after that, he then opened his own company. I know of, maybe I can put it here, commissioners, that, as I said, I've got informers. The chief of staff of the Minister of Police, Mr. Nkabinde, used to work for IPIT. He has given me files about the modus operandi in IPIT. And when he used to be there, the role that Mr. Policeman was playing in IPIT. There was a fallout between the two of them. Mr. Paul O'Sullivan does not mince his words when he speaks out there. He just speaks openly. So I don't want to debate what he's saying. I want him to come before this commission and come and argue the things that I've presented in these past 3 days, that everything is a lie. And he must tell me why he says it's a lie. Not to come here and accuse me on something that he cannot substantiate. But if he's got evidence of it, he's welcome to come. It's an open commission.